click into the event kind of video.
You want to do that?
Sure. And then close the other two windows so you don't get double live streams going.
Here, I'm going to post right there. If anybody's out there and you actually made it onto this video, could you please send me a quick message so I know that? Because Facebook apparently, I think, has some new ways to go live, and we're using the old one. We got stuck on the new ones and we could not go live. So we're now 9 minutes late. Okay, Julia found us. Hi, Julia. So with our wonderful technology mind, I'm going to give people about 2 more minutes to find us. Okay, Kendra, Canada, New York, Norway. All right, they found us. So should I just cancel the other ones now? Do we think here, tech team? Okay, I'm canceling the other ones. Keeping this one. Whoa. Why did that do that? Okay, I hope no one gets lost. Okay, I think we're still here. Oh, to not know how these things work. Okay. So it looks like there's not so many people on yet. Let's give them another minute or two since it was difficult. Hello, Hungsara. So you get internet in the woods, huh? That's trouble when you're doing retreat, isn't it? Hello, Sakaliya Yogini. All right. Padma, Annalisa. Okay, so people are starting to find it now, I think. Okay, so while everybody's looking, I'm going to do a short mandala opening for this formal teaching. I'm making this a formal teaching, even though we're on Facebook online, and even though it is free, etc. Because I think the topic is extremely important. So before I even introduce the topic, let's just do some opening chants. I'm going to have a bell here in case you want to turn down your volume. If you want to chant along at home, feel free. Three Om for body, speech, and mind. Unity. Om. Clearing obstacles, internal, external. Om Ganganapade Namaha, Om Ganganapade Namaha, Om Ganganapade Namaha, Aum Shring Hring Glang Gling Glang Mahaganapataye Namaha. Right channel clear. Left channel, white bindu. Om Aing Saraswatya Namaha, Om Aing Saraswatya Namaha, Om Aing Saraswatya Namaha. Om Shring Hring Aing 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 Maha Saraswatyaya Namaha. Central channel. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shring Hring Machandanataya Namaha. Om Shring Hring Machandanataya Namaha. Om Shring Hring Machandanataya Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May the masters of the lineages guide us and protect us. May they make our mind and heart open to receive the teachings. And may we truly grow and change for the benefit of all beings. Sarva Mangalam, Tatastu. Okay, so let us begin. Today's this is a topic that's very important, extremely important, because for many reasons. One, I wanted us to take a few steps backwards as we're going deeper into making Trika Mahasiddha Yoga an effective system for teaching people worldwide. And as our numbers are increasing on the Facebook group and inquiries about teachings and so forth, it's important to not jump right into the teachings, but to first examine some of the basics before we get going into anything deeper. So instead of 10 steps forward, let's take 3 steps back. Let's look at how to pick a teacher. This is also relevant because if you're going to engage with any kind of system and get anything out of it in a profound way, you're going to have to go into a deep relationship with the teacher. If it's a Dharma system, that is. There are many systems that are not Dharma systems out there, and you can engage with those, but it may not really be the same. So I think it's important that we examine this aspect, how to pick a teacher. Because once we've figured out what system of Dharma we really vibe with, is it Shaktism, Shaivism, Dzogchen, Vajrayana, Taoism, Chan Buddhism, one of the great non-dual meditation and yoga systems, then we have to figure out who's our teacher in this system, right? Okay, and I've been flooded with a lot of requests recently. Will you be my teacher? Will you be my teacher? So I think what's good to do, instead of answering all of them individually, we should talk about this collectively and understand what a teacher is, and then decide. You can start to pick teacher for yourself. You'll understand it. You'll have the knowledge and you'll be able to understand. So I think one important distinction to start out with right away is that there are teachers that are acharyas, that are fully fledged lineage holders or have qualified and graduated all the knowledge that they need, experience of practice that they need to be a teacher from their lineage they've graduated, who are not community leaders. This is one of the first things I want to emphasize, because this came up on the Facebook threads. Some of you saw these. Someone was trying to put me in a position of being a community leader. And you can do that all you want, but I don't accept the role. I'm not a community leader, I'm a Dharma teacher. And I will lead or guide people in sadhana as best I can and bring them along our path to completion as best I can. But we are not creating a school per se and a community of people, an ashram, a monastery. We're not trying to build big institutions. We're not buying land, building big buildings, planning trainings on the land and having places where people can live and all that kind of thing, like an ashram or monastery. Because I realized when I was doing that it keeps the quality of the teaching at a very low level, actually. Never gets to a high level this way. Instead, I'm a teacher. I'm an acharya of tantric yoga, and I'm teaching in a way in the Mahasiddha tradition here that keeps it available for everybody. We're trying to preserve the tradition, make the teachings available for everybody, online, in books, ebooks, podcasts, everything that we've been doing and we're going to continue to do more and more now. But it's not essential that an acharya develop a close following or a group, community or family around them, with them every day in some kind of formal structure where students have a hierarchy, who's above who and who came first and who came last and who's doing well in practice. And you're a senior student, you're a junior student, you're an accolade student. I don't want any of that at all. Basically, I want to teach everybody whatever you need right where you're at. And I want to make that open as much as possible. And this is the idea. So not leading a revolution, a movement, been there, done that, doesn't work, terrible results. Just want to teach the Dharma and help people help themselves, and fulfill my commitments to my 2 great teachers that I had, which is to teach and translate and preserve and put it into modern times so everybody can use it, okay? Now, so let's go right into this now, picking a Dharma teacher. There's about 15 points that I wrote down. That's why I wrote part 1 here on the title, because we may not get through this in one go, and I'm not really concerned about getting through it in one go because it's an important topic. I want it to be fairly comprehensive so that when anybody sees these videos on Facebook later or on the YouTube channel, they'll have the necessary knowledge to go out and choose a teacher that's right for them. The first, I think, most important criteria for a teacher that I want to choose, right, is this. That teacher who is going to lead you, then think about this for a second. A teacher is going to lead you to realization. The necessary requirement is that that teacher has the experience that is beyond yours. Does that teacher, here's the question, have experience that is beyond yours? As long as they do, they can teach you something useful. But until they hit stage 7, out of the 12-stage view, it is pretty clear that they have to be following a very strong code of moral, ethical guidance from their lineage, from their system. Because before stage 7, like in 2 through 6, a human being doesn't always perform actions of body, speech, and mind that are for the benefit of all. Sometimes they're only for the benefit of the self, because the self is still ruling in stages 1 through 5, 6.5, we could say. So it's very important that we understand that anybody above us in knowledge and experience can teach us. But who do we want to get in the foxhole with? This is the question. Who is going to take us to that goal, that self-realization? For that, we want to pick a teacher who is stage 7 grounded or above. Now, that right away creates a difficulty, because how does a person who is in stage 2, 3, 4 pick someone who's in stage 7 or above? And that makes it difficult. So I'm going to try to give criteria in these classes to help us pick a teacher without having to be psychic to know what level or stage a teacher's at, because we barely know what level or stage we're at. It's very hard to pick what level or stage another person's at. But these criteria I'm going to give you here will make it easier for you to pick a teacher and have it work out for you, right? So the very first, most important criteria, I believe, above all, is that the teacher is experienced. They have the requisite experience in the practices. They have the depth of attainment in the practices. Not that they've done them for 5 or 6 years or 10 years. It's not very much, actually. But that they really have a depth of attainment in those practices. And of course, I'm going to talk about the positive examples and the negative examples in this series of classes. We have to do that to make it really clear. What is a negative example of this? Well, I see many teachers who don't have deep practice experience out there teaching, right? So I've seen, I've been in the monastery with students, I don't want to name which monastery or which students, who graduated, you know, around the time I did, you could say, and they're out there teaching, but I knew them from the monastery and they never practiced. And like in one monastery I was associated with, there would be a 20-minute class of meditation on the roof in the mornings with the teacher. And, you know, the teacher was only trying to get them to get introduced to it and set up a habit. It's obvious in this system of meditation that you have to go 1 hour plus, like 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours to get anything out of it each day. And that's just in the beginning, right? Well, I knew a lot of these monks, and they were doing the 20 minutes and they weren't really good at it. They were moving around the entire time, goofing off, checking their phones. Next thing I know, they graduate, they're out in the world being posted somewhere, and they're teaching Dzogchen. They're teaching, you know, the highest meditation tradition available from Tibet. And I was astounded, saying, okay, are they teaching, here's the thing, are they teaching about Dzogchen or are they teaching Dzogchen? And this, I think, is an extremely important distinction to make. You can teach about a subject and not have to have great experience in it. I think that's fine. You can be super honest, like Dzongsa Rinpoche, who was teaching recently and said, I saw him on a video, he said, I've been invited here to teach about, what was it? Devotion. And he said, but I really can't. Because if I was really devoted, I'd be thinking of my guru every moment in body, speech, and mind, and I haven't achieved that yet. So I'll teach about it. I know something about it. I was educated about it. Fantastic. Super honest. That's what we need these days, and that's great. So we can teach about something, but if you want to get a teacher who's going to lead you somewhere, you don't really want a teacher who's going to teach you about something. You want someone who's going to teach you from their experience, what they've actually experienced, accomplished, and they can take you through it as well, right? This means they have to have the experience and the practice. And it's sad to say that there are teachers out there, like I just gave this example, who teach without having a depth of practice experience. And it's really quite a bummer. There's also people that are out who had really no guru, no initiation, no training, and they'll give initiation into mantra practice, deity practice. They'll teach deep meditation. It's sort of like, do you have no shame? I mean, I kind of think, how are you out, teaching Tantra, a Mahasiddha yoga tradition like Tantra, Dzogchen, Vajrayana, whatever, and you're giving initiations into mantras that you haven't received yourself? You're taking people through practices that you haven't gone through yourself. You're taking them through texts that you haven't received from your gurus yourself. So this is very bad. In my opinion, this is what ruins the Dharma, basically. So we need to have that experience. There has to be some attainment. And how can you be sure of that? Well, you can ask around. Does anybody know this teacher's practice history? Does anybody know whether this teacher really practiced or still does practice, or what they do for practice? I think that's really a fair thing to ask. I don't think that's a big bad thing to ask. Well, I was his servant, or I was her servant for 20 years, or I was the girlfriend or boyfriend for 5 years. Okay, what'd you see? Well, laid in bed every morning, didn't practice. Well, this is then, if you're getting this kind of information, then you might want to rethink about whether this person has the necessary experience to take you to realization. Okay, so number one criteria, I think, is that we need experience, we need practice depth, and it's not just me. I'm going to go to the textbook, which I hardly ever do, but I think it's really warranted this time, and go to chapter 4 in the 4-chapter version of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and say here that verse 114, the last verse says, while the prana does not flow in the middle passage of Sushumna, meaning while you're not rooted in Sushumna as your own consciousness, as your own base, meaning you're not really caught up in the ebb and flow of duality, attachment, aversion. While the bindu is not steadied by restraining the prana, so while the life force energy is not relaxed and flowing smoothly through the channels because of the prana being smooth, that the bindu, which can be related to excessive attachment, if not steady in this kind of a verse, while that's not steadied, while the mind does not reflect spontaneous meditation, meaning while the mind is still grasping onto things, grabbing onto things, reacting from moment to moment to moment, not relaxed in its own essence, then those who speak of spiritual knowledge are only indulging in boastful and false ideas, false tales. Then those who speak of spiritual knowledge are only indulging in boastful and false tales. So then anyone who doesn't have this kind of attainment, it's saying, if you don't have attainment, so this whole book finishes with this last verse. If you don't have this kind of attainment and you're talking about spiritual knowledge, you're just showing off and you're lying, false tales, lying. That's from the Shaiva yoga tradition, the Mahasiddha tradition that I come from, very clearly. And now I want to read to you from a Taoist tradition, just to give you a wide smattering a little bit, and I'll give you a quote from Vinavagupta after that. This is from the Celestial Masters tradition, which was started by Zhang Dao Ling, 154 CE, a great, great master. And I was initiated into this tradition and trained in the text, some of the major texts and a few of the family texts in this tradition. So what I'm reading from here is what I was trained in, and I think it's really, really valid right now. This is from the Xiang commentary on the Tao Te Ching, or on the Lao Tzu. It's called Lao Tzu really, but we call it the Tao Te Ching usually in English. So there's a verse that goes roughly, if sages were no more and knowledge were discarded, the people would benefit 100-fold. Sages were no more. And here they're talking about people that just know a lot of stuff, who aren't really following the way, who aren't really deeply immersed in their yoga and so on. So let me give the commentary on this. This refers to deceptive sages with their knowledge of deviant writings and so forth, whom heaven selects. Those whom heaven selects are invariably accompanied by some expression of that selection. Okay. Moreover, such sages constantly expound the truth and will not transmit falsehoods. Those of the deviant ways do not place their faith in the words of the enlightened sages. And it goes down here. The people of today are without accomplishment. Now, this was written a really long time ago, okay? We're talking about 1,800 years ago or more. This was written a really long time ago, and it's still relevant today. The verse I read you from Hatha about 550 years old. This one's about 18 to 2,000 years old, 1,800 to 2,000. Listen to it again. The people of today are without accomplishment. They master the scriptures and the arts. Now, arts here doesn't mean yoga practice. It can't be interpreted that way. These are other arts, like calligraphy and stuff. They master the arts without having understood the truth of the Tao, without having really gained direct experience of the Dharma, of essence, of the nature of mind. They proclaim themselves sages, or other people proclaim them sages. As they measure themselves only against chapter and verse, right? As they, think I know everything because I know the books. This sagehood, quote unquote, has no basis. Such as these are not able to receive the words of the Tao. That's pretty heavy. Such as these, so people like this without practical experience who just know textbook and stuff, they can't receive the transmission, receive the freshness. They're not sitting in essence themselves, so how can they speak from essence is what is being said. Abhinavagupta said that for that person, for that yogin who truly has realized their own nature, nothing exists but to benefit beings in body, speech, and mind, basically, all the time. So that's a really great yardstick that we want to use to measure our teachers by. Do they live in such a way so that all their actions of body, speech, and mind in their own experience are geared and dedicated towards the merit of the students, towards preserving the Dharma, teaching the Dharma, and getting across to people in a really good way? Or do they have a life that is, I'm a part-time teacher, or I make like I'm an actor. I make like I'm kind of this nice person or a realized sage, or I know tons about spirituality, I have all this experience, but then behind the scenes, they're a rotten person, rotten in the heart. So this we have to kind of sort out, okay? That's the first thing I want to start with and give you a little textual response for it as well. Let me give you one more verse because I think this one's really good too, actually. So in chapter 1 of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, there's also verse 66. So the other verse said, if you don't have this happening and that happening, if your prana is not in the middle channel, if your bindu isn't steady because the prana is steady, and if your mind isn't in its own nature, then you're full of BS. Okay, so here's another one in the beginning of the book, first chapter, 66 verse. Neither by wearing the garb of a siddha, so coming out with all rudrakshas on, malas, and wearing all cool stuff and tilak and everything, or just, surrounding myself with spiritual stuff like you see on the walls behind you. Neither by wearing the garb of a siddha, nor by talking about it, nor by just talking and rambling about it, which so many people do today, is perfection attained, or is siddhi attained, is accomplishment or attainment gotten. Only through practical application does one become a siddha. This is the truth, without a doubt. So that's beautiful, succinct, short, powerful, to the point. Only by application do you become a siddha. So, okay. Now, that is something you have to research about your teacher. Did they have the practice? Did they do the practice? Now, there's some people who say, you don't need to practice now. Your Shiva, your nature of mind, your Buddha nature, whatever they call it, your Brahman in Vedanta, you can just just relax into that and you're realized. And there's people who do that or say they're doing that and then they teach. I'd avoid them like the plague because it's called an extreme view. There's an extreme view that I don't need to practice anymore. That's kind of an aversion. So I wouldn't go with any teacher who thinks that, right? Now, let's look at the second principle I think is extremely important for us when we're going to pick a good teacher, especially today. One of the things that I really love about our system is that it's A to Z. It's laid out in a clear fashion. And that's really great because when you go around to different teachers and you sit around for years and years and years and you can't make heads or tails out of the system, you don't know how to progress through it. It's frustrating and you don't get anywhere. Basically, you get nowhere. So in our tradition in Trikamasiddha Yoga, we have 12-stage view. There already you have a way to guide yourself to know what am I experiencing stage by stage. I can find myself in there really clearly. If you have clear self-reflection, easy. If you dialogue with a teacher about it, pretty easy. At least stages 1 through 7 are pretty easy to find. After that, it gets tricky. But on top of that, does the teacher that you're assessing have a system laid out, an A to Z system? I highly recommend that you pick a teacher who has a very clearly laid out and comprehensive system. What is the beginning of the path? What is the fruit of this path? And what are all the steps in between that take you to that fruit? Teacher person, teacher G, may I see these steps? Can you please instruct me on each one of these steps that we have to take in your meditation school, in your Hatha Yoga school, in your mantra school, whatever people teach? I don't know. Teaching mantra by itself is ridiculous because mantra is not a thing. But can I see, teacher person, these steps? Can you show me what type of work will be done along the way, what I have to accomplish? And that's really powerful, and that's really important to have. So just to draw a parallel with that, with our system, in the way of meditation, people can come every year for the Mind of Shiva retreat. There we do a little bit of retreat yoga, and then we sit for meditation 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, and we have question and answers about it, and it's kind of in most times in quiet, right? Silent retreat. And this way you're meditating together and you're getting instructions, good instructions on learning. But if you follow the way of meditation, then in the way of meditation, there are discrete levels, and each level has a certain number of steps in it. And each step has a certain number of techniques in it. And it's very clearly laid out, right? That's what you need. Otherwise, you're going around collecting techniques from everybody, but you don't know how they go together in a flow. You don't understand the overarching philosophy of it and so forth. So I would recommend that. Same thing with the way we teach Kundalini Hatha Yoga, the path of fire. So the way of fire. In the way of fire in Trikamasiddha Yoga, it's clearly laid out as it should be. You go through the steps of yoga, and the posture part is not the main part. So Kundalini Hatha Yoga should be laid out step by step, because if it's not followed step by step, A, you're definitely not going to get the fruit. And B, you could really mess up your mind and your body. It's possible, because these techniques are involving strong use of energy and biochemistry and physiology. And, you got to be super careful when you start working with that kind of stuff. So that should be laid out step by step by step. And it should only be taught by somebody who's gone through those steps themselves. That's quite clear. And that bothers me when I see that, because that's not only like, okay, I'm a charlatan. I make like I'm realized, or I've done all this practice, and I fake everybody out and I read from my textbooks and wow them with my show. But when you start teaching yogic practices, Mahakumbhaka, and you don't have experience of it, Dumo, same thing in Tibetan, which I see with these monks who come out without ever doing a retreat in Dumo, then they're teaching it. I'm thinking, wow, that is seriously problematic, because you're going to hurt people. You can seriously hurt somebody in their body and their mind. And even if you don't hurt them, how are you going to get them to the highest level of that practice if you've never done it? You'd be lucky, very lucky if they could do it. And then you're telling them, probably the teacher says, okay, I think you did it. You're great, wonderful. This is not good. This is not good at all. So an A to Z system laid out is extremely important. And you should look for that when you're looking for a teacher, okay? The third, and then we'll take questions on the end, right? So the third principle that I would like to say is important in picking a teacher is look at how many students the teacher has. I think this is really important. Now we have the internet these days. A qualified teacher, like they do now, there are many, many good qualified spiritual teachers out there. Trust me, there's so many good ones. And I see them up on Facebook and they're giving good teachings, and it's exciting to see. It's wonderful that people have so many great contacts with these great teachers that are a real thing. And they can teach that way because it's Facebook, and they're helping out and they're giving teachings at a certain level. But you're never going to get the deepest teaching on a Facebook. You're never going to get it from a textbook. No, you're not going to get it from a translation of a textbook, So, you can go and learn Tibetan, you can learn Sanskrit and read the book, but it's not going to give you the secrets that you need. That always comes from the teacher who has the transmission. Now, how do you get that? Well, obviously in the classical days, you worked your way through a system. You went through a system so that everything was covered and you had a strong foundation as you went stage by stage, by stage, by stage, by stage, by stage. And that's how you went deeper with the teacher. And so what I'm suggesting here is that if you go to pick a teacher that has hundreds and hundreds or thousands of students that are with them all the time in an ashram, in a monastery, like let's give an example. Dalai Lama is very well versed in the Buddha Dharma, very well versed in Dzogchen. He had Dingyo Khyentse Rinpoche as his main Dzogchen Lama, and he went very high in Dzogchen practice, and he's a very high practitioner. He's not only a guy who's like working tirelessly for the whole planet, he's a very high practitioner as well of Dzogchen and Vajrayana. So he can do it. Now, he could be your guru, he could be your Lama, but then how much access would you actually have to him? That's what I want you to assess. I'm not saying he wouldn't be a good teacher, wouldn't be a good Lama. I'm saying, what do you need? The student should self-assess. What do I need? How much contact do I want with the teacher? If the teacher lives in an ashram, a temple, they're surrounded by tons of students, they're on programs all the time, they're traveling, they're writing, they're on the TV, are you ever really going to get good teaching? So think about a teacher that has a small number of initiated students, the students that the teacher is kind of vowing to take through the whole path. I would look for a small number of initiated students. It doesn't matter if they have thousands online. It doesn't matter if 2 or 3 times a year they do a week or a month retreat with the general public and 100 people go or 300 people go. That'd be quite unusual these days. That used to happen in 70s, 80s, and even 90s. But nowadays, people are not very interested in spiritual work. So it'd be rare to get such huge numbers. But you still do get some teachers pulling some big numbers like 100, 200 people to a retreat. Well, if that's the only way that teacher teaches and they have practical experience, right? As the first principle we put out about picking a teacher that they have practical experience. Let's say they have that experience. They're grounded in their own essence. They have an A to Z system. Check, check. Okay, I got my checklist going. I got my 2 checks. I'm looking for my 3rd one. How many students? Oh, they're always around thousands. Oh, they give initiation to thousands of people. Thousands, okay. Oh, yeah, you can't seem to get them alone for more than like 5 minutes every 2 years. Depending on who you are, like I said, you got to know your own needs. That may work for you, but I would recommend finding a teacher that has more time for you. And that's what I would recommend personally. I don't mean more time for texting on WhatsApp or WeChat or Facebook or something. Not that kind of thing. Time spent together is what is really important when you want to go deep, when you're picking your teacher who's going to take you all the way. That's if you have the commitment to really go all the way, because a good teacher with a lot of experience is going to know right away whether you have commitment or not. They've been testing your commitment the whole time they've known you, whether you know it or not. You've been tested. And when you start hanging around to try to get teachings, if they're not teaching you, it means you don't pass the test yet. They know that you're going to piss off down the road in 6 months or 2 years or 3 years. As soon as things get difficult, things get a little hot under the collar and you're getting reflection you don't like, or, oh, I think it's going to be nicer over there. You just leave the teacher. You don't hang out with him anymore. So they're testing you because of that. They're not going to give you the gems until you hang around, right? And prove that you can really do it. But this is also a function of where the student is. I think remember that it's important to know that in the 12-stage view teachings, I don't think a personal relationship with a teacher is really important until stage 5. I think an outer relationship with the Lama, an outer relationship with the Guru, like outer Guru Yoga, is plenty good to have in stages 2, 3, and 4. Maybe in 4, you're playing with, getting into a closer relationship with the teacher. You're going to more retreats. You're volunteering more afterwards, hanging around for a few weeks and trying to help out, something like that. But I think at that stage, you really don't know yourself fully as a practitioner. I mean, sure, in stage 3, you accept yourself, but in stage 5 is where you go, okay, I've now decided that the Dharma is the number one thing for me in my life. And, if Dharma is not number one thing for you in your life, I don't think it's important to bother a teacher. I don't think at that point. You can just take video courses, you can read books, you can go to the retreat once a year for 2 weeks or something like that. It's not important to bother them on a daily basis until you're really at stage 5. And how do you know that? Well, stage 5 people construct their life around the Dharma. They make their decisions around the Dharma. And if you have children like I did, then I factor in the children. So it's the children and the Dharma. And, in 10 years from now, it'll only be the Dharma. My last child will be 18 and I won't have to worry about it anymore, as far as I know. So this is the way that you'd want to sort it out for yourself. Okay. Am I in stage 5? Well, now I really need a relationship with the teacher. And I want to find someone who's that level. And I want to commit to my practice. I want to commit to the path. I want to devote to the practice, devote to the path. And for that, I need a deeper type of training. And I've done the prereqs, I've done the preliminaries, I've done the foundation work, I've done the outer level teachings. Now I'm ready to go for the inner teachings and the secret level. And the inner and secret level, they necessitate more contact. That's just the way it is. That's never going to change. I know Namkhai Norbu, a great teacher who I revere and who I studied with myself. I think he was wonderful. Left the planet recently, but still out there in space watching all of us. I know that Namkhai Norbu was doing international live webinar transmissions of Nature of Mind. I think that's wild. I'm not really sure if it works, but I mean, I'm not putting him down. I'm just not sure if it works. I don't think it does, actually. I think it kind of works when you're in presence with the person. But anyway, look for a small number of initiated students so they have time for you. That's what I want to say. We have 8 comments already. Let me just get down here. Number 4, the 4th thing I would look for is try not to pick a teacher who's famous. I would really avoid a teacher who's famous. I got checklist 1. Okay, they have the requisite experience of practice. They have attainment. Check. 2, they have an A to Z system that they finished underneath their teachers and they're qualified to teach. Check, check, check. Yes, they had a live guru, not a dead one. Check. Yes, they didn't learn it just from books. Check. Okay. Yes, they went through the whole system. Check. I know a lot of people bail on their system halfway through and become a teacher. Quick story on that, because I think that's kind of important. There's a jeweler I know who's quite realized, and he's just a jeweler. I shouldn't say just a jeweler because he's quite realized. And a friend of mine. And his whole spiritual life was one of 2 things. The craft of making jewelry, which was a 7th generation handed down craft. And it was tragedy. Because he was driving a car one night under the influence and had a car accident which killed his family, his children and his wife, and left him alive. Well, he did his own spiritual search inside himself through his own methodology, and he came out the other end, and he came out realized. And I think it's quite an amazing thing, Here's this guy sitting in a jewelry shop in the middle of pretty much nowhere. And the first time I went into, someone said, you should go meet him. He's kind of an extraordinary guy. So I said, okay. So I went to go meet him. I needed some jewelry done. He only does Western jewelry. At that time, he only did Western jewelry. I was just turning him on to, that was the first one to bring him this other kind of Vedic jewelry, tantric jewelry to do as a request, a commission piece. And I sat down with him and he just stared at me without talking. He was probably 5, 10 years older than me, I bet, without talking. So he was about 45 or 50. No, he's probably even older. He's probably about 15 years older than me. And I remember looking into his eyes and I said, this is a man with knowledge of his own essence. This is a man who's done it, who has experience, And I formed a deep love for this man, a deep relationship with him on a spiritual level, and visited him now and then, gave him jobs to do, to make jewelry and that. But what is, he used jewelry He used this methodology, and he wasn't famous, and he wasn't a teacher per se. But here's the thing. He told me a story because I was telling him, we would talk, and I'd say, yeah, you know, my students come and go. They don't stick around. They don't learn the whole system. They don't get realized. They get to a certain level where they have some kind of awareness and they're having spiritual experiences, and they leave. And I said, it's a bummer because they don't realize that the fruit of this thing is not in a spiritual experience. It's not a state of consciousness. It's not a city or a magic power. It's not even being blissful all the time, right? It's something much more profound than that. But you have to go much farther, much longer, and you have to train more to really know what that is. And he said, Dharma, I know exactly what you mean. I said, oh, you do? He said, yeah. I've had many, many apprentices come to learn from me. They see the work, they want to learn this work, and they come to learn with me, and they stick around somewhere between 2 and 7 years. And I said, yeah, it's not enough time to get it, is it? He said, no. I said, what happens? He said, well, they get some techniques down, they start making jewelry for me the first 2 or 3 years, and then they start making nicer pieces, and then people come in and say, hey, your pieces are really nice. Would you do one for me? And then they sort of think they're done because now they're getting commission work for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or $100,000 a piece. And they think they've done the path of jewelry. But he was telling me, no, they haven't done it. There's so much more to do. They've only learned, 90% of the techniques, but it's the last 10% that really make you a master. But the last 10% that you need to learn takes you 4 or 5 years just to get that 10%. And they already did 3, 5, 7 years. They don't want to do anymore. I said, yeah, this rings a bell. It's exactly what I thought about many students I've trained. Left early, started teaching, became a guru overnight. It's happened a few times. People not finish systems with me go out and become their own guru right away. But they always entered with a bit of that, what could you say, over self-confidence and God realm confidence and Titan realm ambition. They entered the system with that right from the beginning. I could spot it from him in the beginning with him. And I asked him, did you see the same thing? I said, yeah, they had a lot of talent, a lot of creativity, but with that comes a lot of ego, and then they don't want to stick around. I said, yeah, that's what happens. So there you go. So many, many people don't finish the system, and they go out and become a guru. Some of my students are now like world famous gurus. So don't pick a famous one if you can help it. Don't pick someone that everybody knows, because that brings them in the limelight, makes it very difficult to get good teachings. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say about that one. The 5th principle. This is a big one. This could take an hour, so I'll try to do it really short, and maybe we'll pick up on it again next time. I think it's extremely important when you go to put your trust in somebody else for the most important task of life, to realize your true nature. That's why you were born. That's what we all realize in the Dharma. Somewhere along the stages, especially by stage 5, we realize, right, that's the meaning of life. That's why I was born. That's why I'm here in a body. I'm to be realized. This is the school of realization, earth, life, So, okay. So if I'm to be realized, if this is what it's all about, I want a teacher that had a teacher. This is a big thing. I don't want a teacher that's self-made. I don't want a teacher that read a bunch of books. I don't want a smart teacher. I don't care if the teacher's super intelligent or not. Both my teachers, my core teachers, were super intelligent, but they weren't demonstrating their intelligence in front of me all the time. That was not an issue. That's not why I was there. In fact, if they weren't super intelligent, I wouldn't give one crap, because all I cared about was, do they have realization? Do they have attainment? Do they have wisdom and compassion pouring from them all the time? Do they have every action of body, speech, and mind for the benefit of the students, right? And they taught me, without any holding back. They were so generous, so kind, so compassionate, and just taught me everything. But here's the key. They weren't self-made. Each one of them went through a rigorous system or systems, right? Both of them went through various systems. Like you could say, if you're a Shaivist and you know Abhinavagupta's story, he trained with a few different gurus. He probably took all the systems to the end, being the kind of person that he was, so he could create a synthesis of all of them. And likewise, my 2 great Mahagurus, they went through everything in their systems. And they then were told, go out and teach. And I think this is an important thing. For me, it was important too, because I was really happy to keep my life going the way it was. I was trying to earn enough money to break away and get a retreat hut and never have to enter normal society again and just be a retreatant with my wife at the time. And my teacher pulled a fast one on me, graduated me, but a few years before that, he said, you can't be a hermit. Because I said, I want to be a hermit. And he said, no, you can't be a hermit. It's selfish. For you, it's selfish. I've taught you all these things. You need to benefit other people with this knowledge and this experience. So I said, okay. So he said, you have to teach. And, many years later on graduation, I said, well, what am I going to be teaching? What do you want me to teach? I mean, I feel like I can't teach anything because I wasn't given 20 textbooks and taken through step by step. This is the system. I was taken through textbooks, but they were to underscore the oral teachings. They were backing up the oral teachings. They were backing up the practices. They were backing up the experiences I was having from the practices. So at the end, I said to my first guru, what do I do? And he said, you have to teach your experience. That's all we have to offer you, teach your experience, because that's the real thing that gets transmitted from generation to generation. You see, so if you don't have that experience from your teacher, an acknowledgement and a way to assess by working back and forth with the teacher after you do practices, assessing the experience of the practice, after you receive a teaching, assessing whether you understand the teaching, right? Like an example, we had an extemporaneous class happen the other day down here, 3 students and myself. We went really deep for 3.5 hours, I think it was. And at the end, I was asking people, do you really understand? Asking questions to the student to make sure they really understand the teaching, right? That's truly important. So did the student of the teacher finish the system? That is what I would have you check as checkbox number 5. Were they self-made? Worse yet, did they get it by reading a book? Or did they even fabricate a practice history? I know of some teachers who fabricate a practice history. It's unthinkable to me to mislead people like that. I really wonder, do you know the teachings? Because when you die, I know you don't know any masters now, even though maybe you make like you have some unseen connection to some great masters, but you don't. Because if you did, they'd be smacking you in the head and you'd feel so embarrassed and ashamed to be teaching without attainment. Because you know what happens when you die? When you die, you meet the teachers. When you die, you'll have correction. Right? This is not Christianity. This is reality. You don't get away with everything forever. It just doesn't work. When you die, you're going to have people there looking at you saying, so really? You were teaching this system without any, So I just wonder what goes on in their minds. Did they have a teacher? Did they do the whole training? Did they get graduated from the training themselves? Did they get the attainment? Right. There's the last thing I want to talk about today out of the 15 aspects that I think are very important to discuss for picking a teacher. Yeah, I wanted to go to questions now. I see one way back from Atma Yoga. Do you see that? Yeah. Atma Yoga, we'll go with your question first now. The tricky part is that sometimes we can abide in our true nature, but without efforts, we cannot maintain the loving awareness. Can we take 2 paths? Okay, let me start with the first part. This might burn a little bit. You might not like it, but I got to be truthful. I cannot tell a lie when it comes to the teachings and the practices. It's not really true that we can abide in our nature, but without effort, maintain loving awareness. Abiding in your nature is loving awareness, actually. So your nature is loving awareness. Your nature is not some neutral, vacuous space element. This is what a lot of people think when they study Vedanta or they study Dzogchen. They think, oh, space is just space element. Everything else is an illusion. No, not true. The empty space of our essence, the pure empty of any permanence space of our essence is co-equal and absolutely one with an unlimited and all-pervading energy. The nature of that empty space is energy. And the nature of that energy is to manifest. But that energy is not GE light bulb energy, not nuclear reactor energy, not heat, not thermal energy, not electrical energy. No. That energy is pure energy of loving awareness. Awareness without a subject, I mean. just pure love, just pure compassion, just a pure sense of natural at oneness with everything, a natural sense of being connected, engaged, completely harmonious with everything in the universe, right? So that abiding in our true nature, that's one of the real experiences of what it means to abide in our true nature. Therefore, it can't take effort to maintain loving awareness, because when you're in your true nature, you're pure loving awareness. So hopefully that didn't sting too much, but I want to tell you the truth so that you can actually cultivate your true nature and loving awareness simultaneously, right? So on the path, when we're in stage 7 and above, we're supposed to be abiding in our true nature at that point. And that means that every action, here's the way it's measured. How do you know you're abiding in loving awareness? Every action of body, speech, and mind, effortlessly, is for the benefit of all beings. Is for the benefit of all beings, is for the benefit of all beings, is for the benefit of all beings. And yourself. That's okay too. People are like, well, I'm serving all these people and I'm going to eat too. That's fine. People forget that you're included in the Bodhisattva vow as well. You and everybody else is going to get liberated. You're just waiting for everybody else as well as you. So in the same way, when you're in the natural abiding state of your essence, it will include everybody in every thought, every action, every feeling. So you can ask yourself, anybody out there listening right now, if I'm abiding in my own nature, I can check, because I can tell whether every thought was for others' benefit, every feeling was for others' benefit, every action was for others' benefit. So you go to the gym, is that for your benefit or others? That's a motive thing. Only you know. So you can check. Well, I'm staying fit because I want to stay alive, because that's what I do, stay in a body, stay healthy so I can teach longer to help people. Or I want to go to the gym so I can stay fit to show my abs. Well, a huge difference, Or just to live longer because I'm scared of death, or just to live longer because I want to live longer, which really wouldn't be any kind of a great goal in itself, and it certainly wouldn't be for the benefit of the students. So, or of other beings. Can we take, second part of your question, can we take 2 paths, fire and meditation? We can actually take any one of the 5 ways, or you can take all 5 of the 5 ways. It really doesn't matter. It's really up to you. This is where you have to pick what's right for you in the 5 ways. So once you do the preliminaries, then the foundations, then optionally you can do Kundalini Hatha Yoga level 1, which will be online for free. Then you can pick one of the 5 ways to start, but you can supplement with any of the other ones you want. You can do 2 majors, like in college and university. You can do fire and meditation, or fire and water, or water and meditation. You can do 3 if you wanted. The real question is, do you have the capacity to handle, to go through one and then kind of supplement a little bit here and there as you go through your path? That might be the smarter way to look at it. Okay. I don't know how to say your name. Faisal, is it Faisal? Faisal?
No, that was a technical question. You just spoke
Oh,
to
okay.
Wendy.
Who is it next?
Wendy.
Wendy. Okay. Hi, Wendy. Wendy, can you provide guidance on how to self-assess what you need as a practitioner student? Yeah, that's also a huge thing that I'm going to make an ebook out of too. There's picking a teacher, but then there's also student assessing themselves for the readiness to pick a teacher. I'm assuming you're saying, right, what you need as a practitioner student to pick a teacher. And like I said, I mentioned it in the talk a little bit already, but I think it's great to have many teachers from stages 2 to 4. When I decide for stage 5, I would lock it down. And there's evidence for this in the histories that we have of our masters, that some of the rules that are set up in the tradition, like I know in the Shaivist vows that you take only one master. The sub rule under that rule is, if I go to learn another vidya with another master, I have to take initiation from that master and be their disciple for a while. But once I finish that vidya, then I renounce the initiation with the master, and I just go on with the knowledge, keep the knowledge in me, and I go back to being just with one master instead of 2. So there's precedent to this that we really want to focus. Because as my dad, who was the oil wildcat, used to say, very successful oil wildcat used to say, son, you can drill 200 holes a foot deep and get nothing. Or you can drill one hole 200 feet deep and strike oil. So that really makes sense in human world. We only have limited number of years. None of us know when we're going to die. Can we spread it out that thin? So the guidance on self-assessing what you need as a practitioner student is to know what stage you're at. If I'm at stage 2, I need studies. I need lots of books. I need to go to a lot of lectures with teachers. I can try retreats, but there's no reason going deep into practice retreats. You won't really know how to place them yet. You'll have spiritual experiences that are above your pay grade, and then you're going to get lost in it and not really sure what it means. So at stage 2, it's more about books, a lot of reading, a lot of going to visit teachers for lectures, short retreats on outer level practice mostly. Stage 3, it's about finishing up your psychology, your psychotherapy. You were doing that in stage 2 as well, continues into 3, and you finish up 90% of it. So then what do you need for a teacher there? Pretty much the same thing as stage 2. But now in 3 and 4, you're starting to get a feeling more for what are your special needs. Are you a fire type person, a wind type person, a water type person, a space kind of practitioner who binds them all together? You know, what is your thing? And in 4, you're starting to follow little path intuitions. In other words, in 1, 2, and 3, you're like this, but then in 4, like you're going along like this along your path. But in 4, the path starts to come to you at the same time. And as the path comes to you at the same time, it starts to give you little intuitions, gives you signs, you know, not new age signs, real signs. And you think, okay, I think this is steering me down a track. I really am interested in this type of teaching. And I've had a few circumstances which are kind of showing me that maybe I'm really predestined for this kind of teaching as well. Now maybe I'll look for a teacher in this tradition or that tradition and so on. So that happens around 4. And then in 5, you're like, okay, I'm full on committed. Now I really want a teacher who can meet me at that place. And I think to self-assess as a practitioner student, here's a really important one, Wendy, and for everybody who else is listening. When you go to pick a teacher, you have to be ready to give that teacher what they want to teach you. So we're not ready to do that in stage 1. We don't even want a teaching. In stage 2, we're definitely not ready. 3 and 4, 4 maybe. 5, you're ready. 5 is the first stage where you're like, you want my house? I'll give you my house to teach me. Is that the deal you want to make to teach me? Fine. You know, you want me to move to Ishkaboop? Okay, I'll move to Ishkaboop and what do you want? Pull your weeds around Ishkaboop house? Okay, I'll move Ishkaboop house and pull your weeds. So there's this type of commitment that comes in stage 5 where the student has to be committed fully because they're going to ask the teacher to give them their time. The teacher only has so many breaths left in this life. In that body, that teacher only has so many breaths left. That's it. And if they're really a treasure of the Dharma, a real Dharma Nidhi, a real Yoga Ratna, then they have something to really give you. And you don't want to waste their time because they could be spending it with people who have real aptitude. So therefore, the student has to be committed, and that commitment has to be shown by being ready to give the teacher exactly what they need for payment, right? Sometimes in the old days, it was some teachers would demand a bowl of gold dust, you know? So students would go around India, Tibet, Central Asia, collecting gold dust, collecting gold dust, panning, whatever. And they'd spend years and years doing this, and that's purifying them to go to receive the teachings. How pure and how powerful would your intent be if you spent 5 or 6 years out in the steppes of Central Asia collecting gold dust and then gave it to a teacher? I mean, you'd be in and you'd be focused. That means you'd learn really quickly and you'd receive that transition because your heart was already open, purified, clean, ready to receive. So I find today that we are in a commercial marketing culture, period. And people think teachers are bought. People think teachings are bought. I'm not saying that if a teacher charges for teachings, they're wrong or bad. I charge for teachings, and I make no qualms about it. It's just what I'm going to do. It's what I'm going to do because if I didn't, I'd go back to my job and I'd make 400% more than I would as a teacher. Wait a minute, what am I thinking? It's a huge pay cut to be a teacher. But, well, for people like me, but if you got all the books and you got thousands of devotees and then you're making millions, you know, but that's wrong to think of it as a business like that. But there's nothing wrong with supporting yourself. So when the teacher needs commitment from the students to teach you, it's because if they're going to teach you, they can't work. They can't make money. They can't tend the crops. They can't bring the sheep up the mountain. They can't, any of this stuff. So it's very, very normal to commit to a teacher and to give a money commitment or land or a house or put you in a will, or there's all kinds of different things I've heard of. And my teachers charged me when I was at their teachings for whatever the retreat fee was, whatever the ashram monastery fee was, the food fee, whatever it was. But on top of that, I always donated way and above that, a lot of money, because I was a committed student and I was taking their time, and I knew I was taking the precious time of a sage. And for that, I needed to help them some way. So I think, Wendy, it's really important that you understand the student has to be ready to give what the teacher asks. That's really important. And then psycho-emotionally, they have to be their own authority. They have to be independent. This only comes up around stage 4 and 5, where no matter what happens in my relationship with a teacher, I'm going to learn. If I get lambasted, hollered, chastised, chided, ridiculed, beaten, whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn from that. Even beaten, even abused, even, people making fun of you, Dharma. Yeah, exactly. The teacher being a jerk to me, beating me, I don't care, because I'm there to learn, you see. But that kind of attitude is very strong. It's when stage 5 hits, you're a warrior. I don't care if you're 80-pound person sopping wet, who never went to any martial art camp in their life, who never trained any martial arts, who's the meekest, mildest person, pacifist. When you hit stage 5, you become a warrior. It doesn't mean you become a martial artist, but you gain a heart of steel, a resolve, a samarpanakaya, a body of resolve. And in that body of resolve, it's impossible to be abused or be a victim. If your mind can be coerced and taken over by somebody, obviously you're not in self-possession. You don't possess yourself yet. Don't choose to be with a teacher until you're in full possession of your own capacities. You have no right to say, oh, the teacher made me do this, when it was your free choice. If you made a free choice to follow a teacher and jump off a cliff with them, that's your problem. If you made a choice to drink the Kool-Aid, I feel really sorry for Jim Jones and all of his devotees. I feel a lot of compassion for that situation. They all drank some Kool-Aid and killed themselves in South America, right? I mean, that was a crazy thing. But what happened to those people? Where was their self-authority? Where was their inner power of resolve, where they know themselves? And they would never do such a crazy thing. Forget about the teacher. He was a cuckoo bird. But the student, So student has to also have heart of steel, a backbone, and really know that they're doing it for themselves. And if they get to the point where they think it's not working for them anymore, they just leave. They don't go on the internet and write stuffs about it and cry about it and everything. That's what babies do, right? Now, but stages 2, 3, and 4, don't get involved in that situation. You're not ready for that yet. Keep a distance, learn at a distance, learn and grow and grow. There's no compulsion to take a teacher. This is what I think. Can you also speak to students that are afraid to speak up and ask for time in teachings? Interesting. How do we discern if it's wisdom that the student is not yet? Okay, so I might have hurt those people who are afraid to speak up by saying there's only so many breasts that a teacher has. Okay, listen, when you're at a public teaching and you're paying to have the teacher teach you, and a teacher says, like I do, who has questions, and the room sits there like pure silence of a church, I'm kind of wondering, why did you pay all this money and come here? I'm ready to give you the keys to the universe. You paid. We're here practicing and teaching together. Let's do it. So those of you who are afraid to speak up, afraid to ask for time in teachings, you should do that, definitely. But you have to understand, in the internet age, now we have almost 1,000 people in our Facebook group. There's no way that I could talk to everybody who wants to talk to me every week. There's simply not enough hours. Even if I got paid, there's not enough hours, right? So here's the thing. We're trying to put out in our system as much material as we can online. You can take the courses and you won't have a lot of questions after that. But the courses like preliminary course and foundation course will have a question and answer period during the course and after the course as well for a number of weeks to make sure that while you're practicing, these questions that are coming up are going to get handled during a group where everybody else can benefit from it at the same time. That's the important part that we call horizontal transmission. students transmitting to each other about their experience. When it's mediated by an acharya, right? If it's just students talking to themselves about their experience, it can help a bit, but sometimes if it's in like uncharted territory, you may get in trouble. You may, make a mistake about what the experience meant or something. So students should speak up while they're on retreat with us. They should speak up when they're on these video classes, write in your questions. Let's try to get it done. Get it. Don't be shy to ask for your time. That's what a teacher is there for. Like Rudy used to teach about this all the time. You got to suck the marrow out of the teacher. That's the whole point. You stalk them and you suck the marrow out of them. That's your job. Teacher's job is to teach you well. Your job is to get everything out of them. That causes a flow down and out, this circular flow that keeps occurring, That's what you want to happen. But it doesn't mean text me at all hours of the night, send me emails, send me WhatsApp messages, because I simply can't respond. Then you think I don't care. But that's not true. I have children, I have a life, and I have to take care of business, life, school. Schools are closed now, kids are home. Wow. So there's a lot to do, okay? But do ask when it's the proper time. Don't be shy. How do we discern if it's wisdom that the student is not yet ready, committed, or something they need to fight through? How do we discern if it's wisdom that the student is not yet ready or committed? How do we discern if it's wisdom that the student, do you understand this one? I don't either. So Wendy, if we have time, you want to try that one again, you can try it again. I don't get it. Next one, hon?
Yeah,
Atma Yoga. A friend of mine said that this is the teacher who chooses you. This is the teacher who chooses you. For that, he knows he can help you. Everybody is different. What do you think? Okay. A friend of mine says, I know we have a French-English problem here. Let's see if we can get it. A friend of mine said that this is the teacher who chooses you. For that, he knows he can help you. Everybody's different. I'm going to guess that you're asking, and if I'm wrong, please correct me so I can answer the right question. I'm going to guess that you're asking that really it's the teacher who chooses the student. And I'm going to say, well, the teacher has to finally accept the student. That's true. But I think what I'm focused on here right now is that the student is the one who has to choose wisely, how to pick wisely a teacher. Of course, you can go to the teacher and the teacher says no. I have a really great chart, astrology chart, for getting the most fantastic teachers and doing whatever they ask me to do and getting the teaching, sort of like Karna in the Mahabharata, where he gets Parashurama to teach him by incredibly hard service and penance. That's what I used to do, and that's how I got taught. But there are teachers I did approach who said no. There were those few that said, nope, sorry, you're not in my karmic field, you're not my student. Go away. I'm like, wow, bummer. So in the end, it is the teacher who chooses. A man can propose to 20 women for marriage, but it's the end the woman who chooses. So it's never the man who chooses the marriage, right? Maybe that's too old fashioned, but that's a good example for illustration. So yeah, I don't think it's the teacher. I don't think it's the teach. It is the teacher ultimately chooses, but the student has to know how to properly pick. And that's what we're covering today. And your second part is we can realize the self without attaining rainbow body, right? There are 3 bindus. There's a white bindu in your head, a blue bindu in your chest, and a red bindu in your base. If you don't realize the rainbow body in our tradition and in the Zhengyi or Orthodox Taoist tradition and in Dzogchen tradition, if you don't realize the light body, you haven't attained the full path. Okay, so the rainbow light body is the full path. Dying without it could be dying in a high state of enlightenment, a high state of realization. You may have the white bindu realized, but not the blue and the red. You could have the red realized, but only a little bit of the white, a little bit of the blue. You could have a lot of blue, no red. You get what I'm getting at here. There are many different types of realization. And people like Nityananda Baba, highly realized, died in a body. Ramana Maharishi, highly realized, died in a body. Buddha, highly realized, died in a body, and so on. But there's something different about a light body. It's all 3 bindus, completely maximized, absolute full realization, lost every single karma of any kind of individual sense, boom, pure rainbow light. So that is the full tilt, right? Anything less than that. That's why I always say, people say, are you realized? I mean, it's a ridiculous question to me. If you ask me if I'm realized while I'm sitting here in a body, I'm going to tell you, of course not, because I don't have a rainbow body. So that's kind of a high yardstick, but I think that's important so we can keep integrity in the system. So full realization, rainbow body, partial realization without it is possible. But without it, with partial realization, that's where we have a little bit of trouble, don't we? I had one famous teacher whose name shall be not mentioned. And he said, oh, I've got, one of my bindus fully realized. I'm just working on the other one now. And I'm like, what? And it's obvious that that person has not a clue of what full realization of that bindu that the person named means to be realized. Absolutely not. Completely not realized in that bindu. So what are you going to do? So at least rainbow body, that resolves all questions. When a master dies, sitting up saying, I choose to die now. She sits up in her Padmasana and she says, I'm going to die now. You've been all wonderful students. Goodbye. Boom, closes the eyes, stops breathing, and stays seated for a number of days afterwards while the space around the heart is still warm and everything else, the brain is dead, heart's not beating, blood's not, everything else is cold, stone cold. That's another way to assure that that person before they died attained a stage 9, 10 death. And then they were realized, at least right before they died, probably a few years before, if not longer than that, but not fully realized, not rainbow body. So these are the two deaths that we really want to look for in a master to know if they were fully realized when they die. Okay. Jorge? Jorge Tarud. I think Argentina, is that right? Are there teachers from TMY you can point us out, please? I wrote a mail to you asking for online classes. Oh, Jorge, if you wrote an email to us asking for online classes, Sukalia, did you get that email?
I'm not sure I get a lot.
Please write that again, Jorge. Sukalia doesn't remember getting it. On trikapath@gmail.com.
Yeah.
What's coming?
Well, the question about online classes, that's what we're working on right now, right?
I wrote a mail to you asking for online classes. Oh, I didn't know if you meant online classes in a group or you meant one-on-one. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not sure what you mean. So if you mean online classes one-on-one, you can write to Sukalia for that. I take 4 students a week for that, as long as there's a slot open. There's no time for more than 4. And sometimes that has to go on break while I do other things. If you're talking about online classes, we're happy to say that the problem we had in the back end of the website got cleared up, and we're rapidly finishing up the filming and editing that will need to go up. So we're thinking it's 4 to 6 or 8 more weeks at the most before the website goes up, unless we encounter another problem, and all the online classes will be there. Teachers from TMY you can point us out to. Well, there are some accredited teachers out there all over the world. Anyone who was a teacher of Adi Yoga, though I used to call our system of Kundalini Hatha Yoga Adi Yoga before, they can teach you. There's 2 teachers in Portland. That is Gregory and Brian, and they teach the yoga, right? They're authorized to teach yoga to a certain level. Not a lot of, there's no acharyas at this point. Sumanasa teaches or does Trika psychotherapy sessions on people, right? And she's in Brooklyn. But right now we have a very strong group of people training in acharyaship, and we're looking, it's a very traditional training. So you want to know why I don't have teachers out all over the world who are teaching? It's because you have to go through all the training, as I said today, and you have to get the attainment. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who studied with me up to a certain level, and they could go out there and wow the masses with the teachings. There's a lot of people teaching out there who simply stole a lot of my work, from our tradition, without permission, without going through the attainment, without getting it comprehensively learned, just attend a few trainings, and they're teaching it, calling it their system, making money on it actually, which is really sick. But would I recommend them? No, of course not, because why would I recommend somebody who didn't finish the system? So Jorge, my heart's with you. I'm trying to get Acharyas trained and get them all out over the world. We've got Dutch ones in training now and American ones in training now, and from all these different countries in the world. So when they finish and go back to their home places, they'll be helping everybody out. Brazilians, all kinds. Kamala Kali, you said, or Kamila Vorkapic, you said in the stages 5 to 6, all you care is the Dharma. But it is possible to feel this way when you have such big mundane responsibilities. Is it possible, I think you're saying, to feel this way? when you have such big mundane responsibilities, such as small kids. You know my life. You know I had small kids. All I care about was the Dharma. Of course. You can absolutely love your kids and see them as an expression of the Dharma and have complete responsibility to your job, to your community, to your family, to your kids, and still be an exemplary, a fine illustration of a person whose every motive of body, speech, and mind is to serve, is to be there for all humanity, that everything you do feeds all humanity. It's the inner motive. You know when that's 100% and when it isn't, like the story I told about that Dzongzor Rinpoche talked about. Do you know about what it would feel like to have, in Stadium 5 and 6, care completely about the Dharma and nothing else? You know, when I say care completely about the Dharma and nothing else, I don't mean you run out on your family like the Buddha, although some people do that. What I mean, care about the Dharma completely, your body, speech, and mind are suffused with it. You can't get rid of it. It's all you really, it means it's your top priority. But when you have other obligations, you know in your heart which ones you need to fulfill or not. You know, it's a different era than when the Buddha ran off and left his family, left his children and his wives. I don't know. Everybody makes up their own choice when it comes to that morality. That's not me. I don't judge that for anybody. But if the Dharma is really your thing, and you're not going to have to work out the karmas that you're running away from to pursue the Dharma, see, that would be the wrong way. If leaving whatever is the situation you're in doesn't leave karmic traces, and you're not leaving gaping wounds that you have to work out later, then making Dharma your number one priority and following it regardless of whatever situation you're in socially, familially, etc., then it makes sense. But if you're going to be in a situation in stage 5 or 6, have obligations to work, to family, to friends, etc., to children, have those real obligations and say, well, I'm just going to leave because I'm going to follow the Dharma like it's an easy out. I'll be the free wild yogini, you know. And then they're going to come up, those things are going to come up to haunt you later. You didn't do the best you could have for your kids. They didn't develop right because you didn't stick around, you know. You didn't fulfill what you didn't finish your schooling. So now you have no way to make a living because you have no degree, no profession, you know. If all this stuff keeps coming up or you bailed on your family, you know, if that comes up later to bite you, you'll know, I guess I didn't make the right choice. When Buddha left his wives and children, it was like he was in a community where everybody took care of everybody anyway. Probably got a bit of the scoundrel look the next day when everybody woke up and saw he was gone. But it was a different kind of time back then. So you have to decide for yourself. Do these things then keep you from attaining these stages? No. There are no obligations that we have in our lives that we have taken on ourselves that we need to complete ourselves, which can stop us from realization. However, let the buyer beware. The whole point of taking initiation is to not create new karmas. So once a student takes initiation with me, when I see them just taking on new karmas, making new karmas, I mean limiting karmas. Karmas that limit the person's ability to practice, limits the person's ability to realize the way. Then it's obvious they made a mistake. And it's good for them to realize that they made a mistake. And I want them to realize they made a mistake. But you got to rectify that. How? You got to work through it now. But that can't stop you from being realized. It just made it a hell of a lot harder. Okay, good. Okay. Hopefully that covers that for you, Kamala. Faisal, okay. So if I'm getting your name right, Faisal, I think you're from Lebanon, a place I cannot wait to visit. All my life I've wanted to go there. Maybe you'll be living there when I get there one day. I just can't wait because it's got such history and I really want to see it. It looks so beautiful. So hopefully you're in your fine country enjoying yourself. But why would a real teacher want to abuse a student or ask them to harm themselves? This does not sound to me like a real Dharma teacher, is it not? Yeah, a real teacher would not abuse a student or harm them on purpose to hurt them. What I'm saying is that a student's perspective may be that this teacher is being mean to me by not answering my question, being mean to me by shouting at me to shut up and sit down, in the middle of a lecture or something like that, or maybe mean to me by, let me give you an example. I would fly from my home country to India and I would announce to my teacher that I'd arrived because I already said it through the old snail mail of writing a letter. I'll be there in 3 months. And he would write back, I told him the date and everything, I'll arrive. Okay, I'll be there. My teacher would write back, I'll be there for you to teach you. Well, I'd arrive, and either he wasn't even in the country, and I have to wait for him to come back, and I had to stop my business and everything, put my family on hold, the business, and go there. Or I'd have to sit and wait to be seen. And one time it made me wait like 2 weeks, sitting every day in the hot sun. Then it went to monsoon in the rain on the porch of his hut every day for, and I didn't want to miss him. So I got there like at 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m. And I didn't leave again till like 7 or 8 at night when they said, you have to go now, like you got to get out of here. I'm like, okay, please tell the guru that I'll be back in the morning, So was he abusing me? I don't think any of them were ever thinking that they were abusing or harming me, even when they were being harsh with me. It's how I take it that matters, Faisal. This is really important. If you find that a teacher wants to abuse you, likes to abuse you, is getting off on it somehow, is callous or careless or mean and doesn't really care, and what they have to teach you is not that important for you, then go. By all means, leave. Because, right, what good teacher would abuse you? And why would you, more to the point, why would you want to stick around for abuse? Now, I have stuck around with abusive teachers because I wanted to learn something they had. They were not my one teacher. Now, this whole class today is talking about picking the one teacher, what's called the Sat Guru or Tsawe Lama, the one that's going to be the one that introduces you to true nature and takes you through the path. So I'm not talking about upaya gurus, what we call teachers who teach you supplementary things you need to learn. I had many of them, and many of them were jerks, straight up jerks, and were abusive like crazy. By today's definitions, they were so abusive, but I just toughed it out because I wanted to learn what they had, and I was grateful to learn what I got. And I said, thank you very much, paid them whatever needed to be paid, took my abuses and left because I'm a warrior and I was in stage 5. I don't care. But if you're not in stage 5, don't hang around abusive teachers. No, it's terrible. And if you're looking for the one teacher, definitely don't hang around a teacher that you think is abusive. Because if you think they're abusive, A, you may be too soft, not ready yet for a teacher, not ready really for a one-to-one teacher. Or B, they may be truly abusive and you should get the heck out of there. Okay, so you're right. It's not right. Get out of there. Crystal, what is the best, most efficient way for a householder to purify their heart and prepare for the teacher at stage 5? That's a big question. You've got to become your own authority. That's a key. I think that might be the most important thing. Simply the most important thing is, let's put 2 things I would say. The unquenchable burning desire to know your true nature, to follow the Dharma at all costs, at all peril. Don't care anymore. It's not worth living anymore if you don't have the Dharma. That feeling has to be there. Or 2, that, what was I going to say? Yeah, sorry, thanks. That you're your own, thanks, honey, that your own self-authority. The second thing is that you've got to be your own person, independent, able to choose for yourself, to assess your level, the teacher's level. Is this right for me? You've got to be the one. You can't have victim mind at all. You can't have any hell realm blame, any ghost realm neediness. This just won't work. So the greatest way to prepare to purify your mind and your heart, to prepare for a teacher at stage 5, is to make yourself super strong, super powerful, independent, don't buy swampland in Jersey kind of person. No one can coerce you. No one can manipulate you. No one can control your mind. God forbid you get around a person who tries to do that to you. That's not it. You don't want that, right? Okay. And the other one is that you have to have that irreversible, unquenchable, burning desire to know your true nature. I think when those 2 things come together, you'll naturally be in stage 5 and everything will be fine, householder or not. Okay? Very good. You're welcome, Wendy. I answered the last part. Okay, great. Will this be a monthly payment scale like before? Lori, I'm not sure what that question... Oh, the online courses. No, the online courses will be a pay for course. Each course will have a different price or will have a price and you pay for it if everyone's interested like that. Yeah, the membership thing we thought it would work, but it doesn't really work. So we're changing it, following the advice of everybody who went before us. All right, Karen. I believe I thought I had a steel heart, but it was less strong metal, maybe lead, bendable. I wanted so badly for it to be true that I pushed more than I could stand, and my heart broke its integrity. Energy bled out, lost ojas. I feel weak or not able to practice. How can I heal and build that steel heart? Being weak now, it's hard to believe it's possible, is it? Yes, it's absolutely possible. It's no big deal. And whatever you feel that you broke by finding out that you're a bendable piece of metal instead of steel rod, that is the learning, that is the nutrition, that is what you needed to learn, to change, to grow. It's never too late. You simply follow a good daily routine, Ayurveda-wise, Chinese medicine-wise, as you know, you're a Chinese doctor. Build your energy of physicality, build your energy of discipline, study the teachings, just play like you're in stage 2 again, and study the teachings like crazy, study them like crazy, listen to the teachings over and over again, read the books, so the view becomes so much in your very fiber and in your cells that there's no way you couldn't take the path again. And it'll awaken in you. The Shaktipata will come at a higher level. You'll awaken to an irreversible desire for self-liberation, to know your true nature. And you never left the path. You're only learning about yourself in the path. This way that we can be so hard on ourselves and guilt ourselves limits our ability to grow. Now, there are some really big mistakes that people can make, but what you're saying here, this is not a big mistake. This is something that everybody does pretty much at some point along the line. Most of us will self-assess at a much higher level than we are at some point. And we can do it and put ourselves into obligation spectrums with teachers and teachings and practices and initiations, and all of a sudden wake up and go, whoa, I'm way over my head. What do I do? And if the teacher is a loving teacher and loves you, they're going to tell you, it's no problem, dear. No problem. Just brush it off. Go back to basics. When you're ready for more, give you more. You know, the highest practice that you've heard this from me before, but other people may not have heard it. The highest practice you can get, the highest teaching you can get is the one you're ready for, right? So it's fine. It's really fine. You have to heal it first by forgiving yourself. And then you heal it by confessing to the masters. You do that internally in your own heart, like you do in a Shakti Foundation practice. Knowing that immediately when you recognize the fault and confess, immediately you're rectified. You know, you don't have to do anything to prove your validity anymore. You're immediately rectified simply by saying, I'm entering the stream of the Dharma again. I want to enter in a clean, clear way. So I'm saying to the masters how I may have stepped out of line in some way, and now I wish to go deeper again. Support me. I pray for refuge and support and protection from all the great masters. May you continue to support me on my path in my body, speech, and mind. May I continue to lay down a very powerful foundation of self-authority, health, of vital life force energy, prana shakti, and commitment to the path. May I see the truth and validity of the teachings as the real way to know my true nature in this lifetime and to achieve a way out of samsara, etc. You pray those prayers, you know. Pray the Shakti Foundation practice every day. Develop rhythmicity and just review the teachings until you realize this is what I really want. And then you won't have to push yourself. See, pushing yourself to breaking is no good. We should never push ourselves to breaking. We should always feel that there's a sweetness to the path. This is very important. I push very hard in my path, but I only did it because I loved it. And you can overwork something that you really love. But if you don't love it, you should be overworking it. You know what I mean? There should be only effort, not strenuous effort and struggle. I can put in a really strong effort because I really love the path. That's okay. But as soon as it becomes a drudgery, as soon as it becomes something where I'm guilting myself, hating myself maybe, I've made a big mistake. I've assessed that I'm too far ahead, or I've taken on obligations to be too far ahead on the path. Pull back, draw back. It's okay to draw back and start slow again. Find the sweetness again in the beautiful things in life, the beautiful prayers of the foundation practice done twice a day. Something as simple as opening and closing the mandala, 10 minutes in the morning of a few chants, 10 minutes at night with a few chants, the whole day during the day trying to remain in second attention of loving awareness or kindness or any one of the four immeasurables: joy, compassion, equanimity, whatever. Try to stay in any of those. And that's enough for in the beginning to make the sweetness of the path again. But read a lot again. Read a lot and get inspired. Read the lives of the saints. I always do. I love it. It's very beautiful. Okay. Your second question. Sorry, another how question. That's okay. Don't worry. I do want to have that steel heart, but I'm back to where I was. But I know that I don't. And before I naively that I had. And before I naively believed that I had. How question? No, that's okay. So that's all the same question. Good. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. And when I get to Brazil, let's talk about it more. I'm coming down there to teach, and I'm coming down there to get my knees done, maybe. Okay. Is that it?
Very bottom, just a comment from myself.
Thank you for clarifying. I have been with teachers who use the Dharma or the highest teachings to justify their shitty behavior or of abuse. I shouldn't laugh. It's terrible. It is all God. It is all God. It is all Shiva. I am not the doer. To not own their shadows. I think what you're saying is good, right?
You're just confirming.
Okay, you're confirming. Great. Yeah, you don't have to own their shadows. Listen, as soon as you as a student realize that the teacher was abusive, you've already graduated their program and way beyond where they are anyway. So as soon as it's verifiable that it's not just your complaining and being a baby, but no, they really are harming people and really trying to harm people. I just saw something come out on Yogi Bhajan this week that, was no surprise to me, but it surprised a lot of people. But there he was doing shady deals, drug smuggling, raping. One woman who was a sister of another woman in the cult held that sister down while he raped her. Oh my God, horrific acts that these people will do. This kind of stuff is just horrific and totally unexcusable. That's not a teacher. So right away, all of us are lifted way above their level because they're just low-life criminals. Terrible abuse. So yes, it's all one nature. We are all Shiva essence. We are the doer, but we are the doer as essence, doing, right? They have their shadows. We don't have to have anything to do with their shadows. Exactly. Well put. And I think that's the last one, right? Okay, everybody. Then we have a few more of these classes coming up, and you'll see them posted. Let's finish with dedicating the merit of our practice. I'm going to ring the bell, so you might have to turn your volume down so you don't break your speakers or your ears. Let's chant the Shantipat mantras, and you can perform the mudras if you know the mudras. Chant together where you are. Close your eyes right now. See yourself sitting in the center of the universe. And infinitely around you in this unlimited sphere of whole integrity, of loving awareness, are all the beings of all the six realms and any other kind of beings that we may not know exist in universes we do not know of, in all past, present, future times. And all those beings are sitting there and in all their various forms of suffering. As soon as we start ringing the bell and chant the first Om, they all instantly transform into a light body. And rainbow light pours out from their body, fills the whole universe. And then we chant and bless everybody with welfare, with peace, with fullness, with auspiciousness. And we bless all the 3 lokas, or the 21 lokas, depending how you slice it up in your system. Basically, all the beings of the universes. We bless them all with all these wonderful capacities and wish them to be free to know their true nature. Peace, peace, peace. Visualize that as we chant. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya sarvesham svastir bhavatu sarvesham shantir bhavatu sarvesham purnam bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Varadhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamrita. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Harihi Om Tat Sat, which means may this be so in unbroken continuity. Blessings of love and gratitude and long life to our gurus, our lamas, our dashas, all the wisdom masters that we studied with, who have brought us to recognition of our true nature, who will bring us to recognition of our true nature, who will guide and protect us on the path. The parampara, we take refuge in it, and the great master's grace and bestowing of blessings of compassion and wisdom. So may we be guided and protected. May we be blessed. May we be brought to that true realization, which is irreversible. And may all our activities of body, speech, and mind be dedicated to the benefit of all beings, even before we achieve such perfection. Let it be so. May we dwell in the four immeasurables of love, joy, equanimity, and compassion. May all of us walk the road of compassion. May we benefit all beings. Thank you to our gurus and lamas. Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham. You are that essence, you are that essence, you are that essence. That's what Shivoham means. Until then. Okay, let's see if I can turn this off and not lose the recording. I think I hit end live video. Would that be correct? And then I hit end again. Do you want to end this live video? If you end this live video, you'll be able to choose if you want to save or delete it. So I end.